Hi, I'm Anna Runkle, also known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy, and today I'm going to talk to a real psychiatrist, Dr. Susana de Leon from Panama. We're going to be talking today about telomeres. Those are the little caps on the strands of DNA that can be damaged by childhood adversity. They become shorter. And so I'll be asking Dr. De Leon, what can we do to make them longer and actually improve our long-term health outcomes? So I wanted to welcome you, Dr. De Leon, and I was hoping you could talk to us about the relationship between our telomeres, the adversity we may have experienced in the past, and our health today.
Hello, and thank you so much for inviting me, Anna.
Mhm.
So while I was training at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston back in the 90s, late 90s, these studies were already out. So it was always kind of embedded in the literature that we read. Later on, I also had the opportunity to work with a very well-known trauma expert, Dr. Bruce Perry, who also specializes in trauma in children. So I work at the child trauma clinic while in Houston, and that also created a greater awareness of what trauma does to children and adults.
Mm-hmm. So, what were some of the early findings that you were discovering? Mm-hmm.
Baby brains are incredibly sensitive. We human beings are wired for love and care and having some basic needs met. When that doesn't happen, and it's very easy that it doesn't happen when you are in an environment where there's poverty and deprivation and alcohol problems and abuse and all of those things. The effects of this are long lasting. So this was like a turning point, I would say, to understand how the first years last forever, so to speak.
Well, I noticed that the ACEs study, we've known for a long time that people are psychologically affected by what happens in early childhood, but we started to learn that people are physiologically affected, neurologically affected. And as a psychiatrist, you're sort of dealing with all of that. And that must have been huge for the profession.
That is really huge. And, it's not only physiological effects or neurological effects. I mean, what comes before all that? It's the genetics. And there's a study that came out a few years ago that is, it speaks to that, how telomeres are shortened by trauma. That's really incredible. I mean, whatever happens to children, meaning the effects of poverty, the effects of trauma, of alcoholism in the family, of unemployment, of homelessness, all of this affects the telomeres. And what does that mean? It means that they're going to grow up to be adults with more predisposition to chronic illness, basically. Anywhere from anxiety, depression, alcoholism, obesity, hypertension, all of that will be increased. So the cost, the emotional cost and the social cost of this is huge.
Now, can you give us just a little education? Tell us what telomeres are.
The tips of the chromosomes, the chromosomes have the genes. The genes are the ones that kind of create all the proteins and everything we're made of. So, it has a little shape, and at the tip of those chromosomes, we have that little extra, or that not extra, but that little part that is called telomeres, and has been found to be flexible, has been found to be related with aging, with illnesses, with predisposition to being more healthy or not. So it's a very important part of who we are.
And so healthy telomeres are what? They're flexible, they're long, and
Yeah, well, they're longer, and you wish that you have long telomeres, basically. If you want to wish something good to someone, it's good telomeres.
uh-huh. And yet trauma shortens them.
Absolutely, it's proved. And the findings are incredible, because that tells us what we already see. We see these people that suffer in childhood, how they struggle often, not only with anxiety, depression, and alcohol problems or unemployment, but how they have hypertension, obesity, diabetes, chronic disease, autoimmune disease.
Now, I remember when I was talking to you recently, you were telling me that in a way this is bad news, but there's also some good news in that people who were affected by trauma can be very responsive to healing. So that's something I want to talk more deeply about, is that for those of us who, you know, the evidence is there. Like I probably have shorter telomeres. I have 2 autoimmune diseases. There's a lot that runs in my family, and it's hard to say like what's purely inherited and what might be the effect of early trauma. But I'm very interested in what can I do to improve my chances, or, you know, get a more resilient physiology to avoid getting sick because of this.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of human beings. You know, we can always reprogram, so to speak. And how do we go about that? First of all, recognizing what the problem is, you know, seeking the appropriate help, learning more about what your body is responsive to, or doesn't respond well to, knowing that we're flexible, that we're kind of creating ourselves in a regular basis, if you will. All of those things help. Um, Finding the right professional help oftentimes changes lives forever. Understanding where you are and where you want to be at. I find your blog very interesting because you talk about very specific things that actually have been proven they help. Um, Walking, working out, keeping yourself creative. The meditation part has also been found to help greatly. Exercising, eating well, finding good friends, good support networks. Sometimes therapy helps, but you have to have a good fit with the person who's going to work with you. Group therapy also helps, you know, beautifully. So there are things that the person can do to uh, get past.
I remember when I was talking to you recently, I was telling you about how this summer I got diagnosed with a precancerous condition, endometrial cancer, and then it went away. And it was the second time I had a pretty serious health problem that kind of spontaneously went away. And these things are known to happen, but it's not very likely. I was supposed to have surgery, and I ended up not needing surgery in both cases. But you had suggested that it could be that, because I said I had always felt like these problems might be related to a way that I was holding stress. Like in the first case, I had a series of 14 surgeries to repair some damage from childbirth, and none of them worked. In fact, every surgery was leaving me worse off than the last one. And I had excellent surgeons. I had very good care. And they kept saying, we don't know why you're not healing. There's some reason why the tissue, it's not responding. There doesn't seem to be adequate blood flow. And nobody could really explain it, why it just kept getting worse and worse. And then 2 years after I was done having surgery, and they had said, it can't be cured now. There's nothing we can do. You're just going to have to live with it. Then it spontaneously healed. So I was telling you the story that 2 times I had these terrible conditions, and there was almost no hope. In the first case, there was no hope. And yet I healed. And you were telling me that sometimes people like me actually can heal quite well if we can address, you know, the mystery problem of why it is we're not healing. Why are we developing these problems? And I was talking to some readers of Crappy Childhood Fairy about this, and people were like, could you have Dr. De Leon tell us what is that? Like, what should we be doing? And you've been giving us this great list, but I'm interested, like, have you seen this in your practice? What kinds of people have you seen are resilient? What are the special, not just behaviors, but what kind of attitudes or character traits have you found help people to move into the resilient side of it?
That's such a complex
Yeah.
question, but
Yeah.
let me try to break it. In terms of traits that you see in people, and it has been documented, people who live with a gratitude attitude tend to, you know, heal better. People who live with hope, people who have meaningful connections. I mean, I tell my patients all the time, this sounds corny, right? But we really thrive on love and having people that we love and people who love us back. So
that's not corny.
You know, you go and see a psychiatrist and you tell them, you know, it's about love. It really is. And what that takes me to the other question, which is, you know, what's the mystery illness, what's going on? It has been proven actually that a low mood, that inside, holding pain, emotional pain, can affect your immune system. And an unhappy immune system is not going to do the tremendous work it has to do to heal someone, right? So actually, for decades now, we know that patients, battling cancer, battling with immune disease, if they're depressed, the prognosis is not as great. And it links immediately to the immune system, right? So mood and the way you see your life and the connections that you have and that happy feeling inside that good connections and gratitude and hope bring actually affect the immune system. And that's what we need to heal, pretty much everything.
Yeah, I know it's so deep. There's so much you could say about it, but it's so great to hear a psychiatrist talking about this, that, a lot of my life, it's like the world of medicine and psychiatry, we're very far away from this idea that love and relationships matter. And the trouble with early trauma, it damages the ability to connect with other people. I mean, that's one of the core things it does, is it makes it really hard to connect with other people. And that right there is like its very own disadvantage. And so it seems to me like a lot of recovering and getting on with a happy life, no matter what's happened in the past, is about learning how to connect.
Absolutely. And that's possible. And some people find different ways to do that. I will not say that the only way to learn that would be psychotherapy, but that's the one I know very well because that's what I'm training. And it does help, and it does change people, and it does help you learn what you're responsible for, what you bring into a relationship that makes it fail, to make it then, better for you and for your partner or spouse or children or whoever is in your life. So it's possible. It's possible to learn to reconnect.
I used to think that when people talked about this kind of thing, that either it was just psychobabble or there's no way it applied to me. I mean, I really thought that I was somehow outside of the possibility of healing. But I met a dog who had been abused and neglected when it was young. And it was a dog that could be affectionate, but you never really knew when it was going to get snappy and start biting. And it had behavior problems, and it was really hard for people to keep this dog. They were very committed to this dog, but this dog had problems. And I just, it kind of hit me like, if a dog gets this way from being abused and neglected, what happens to people? And thankfully, that with animals, just like people, with a consistent provision of love and communication and safety, a lot of change can happen. Absolutely. And I know it's not always perfect, but all of us have to like figure it out, right? Workarounds. And so, Dr. De Leon, when you did a lot of your training in Texas, and then you went back to Panama to practice, did you notice cultural differences in how people are affected by ACEs or in how the profession treats people?
Absolutely. There's always cultural differences. But one thing I mentioned to you that I found was common is the human suffering is the same. It's just like people laugh in the same language, people hurt in the same language. And that was a common experience of it. Different realities, different languages, different family systems, yet the suffering was the same and would manifest in similar ways. Same chronic problems later on in life, relationship problems, you name it. It's very similar, just a different background. Let's put it that way.
And what about the helping professions? Are they aware of it in Panama? How's that going?
Yes, it is. There's an awareness about the ACEs in Panama by the internists, psychiatrists, child psychiatrists, mental health workers, of course. So yes, there's that. There's the awareness, but Panama is a different country. We score very well, in the banking system and all of that. However, it's a country of difference. You have a very wealthy community and a very poor community, and that it's a different poverty from the one that you see in the States. In many different ways, it's very different. Yet, throughout my experience as a psychiatrist, I have come across amazing people, and that have changed a lot of, of the work I do and how I do it, because I learned from them that, I could have the perfect interpretation, if you will, and, and the biological knowledge that I would happily share. That's why, they came to me, and all the psychological insights. But there was something inside of them that woke up to knowing that they could make a change for themselves, to feel that you matter to people, that people are with you, that people are, so to speak, cheering you on while you're doing this, makes a big difference. Somehow it gets to the mind, and it gets to the immune system, and it gets to the outcome of things. We don't know the exact pathway yet, but it's there. We see it every day.
So I know, like, so many people who were affected by crappy childhood stuff, connecting with people and advocating for oneself can be really hard. And so as a psychiatrist, do you help people with that?
One of the things that seem to work pretty well is when people start changing the way they think about themselves. This crappy childhood thing makes people think, I'm not good enough, I'm going to fail, I'm going to be rejected, I'm going to be defeated. All of those negatives are very, very present. And identifying them and switching them into, I'm good enough, I'm going to make it, I can make a difference, makes a difference. So changing thought patterns is a way to start. And sometimes that's what I do in my job, help people recognize or identify those cognitive ways of looking at situations to then make it into positive. And that one thing leads to the next and to the next. And, so it's a day by day task, keep up with your plan, try to do a little bit every day of what you want to do. Share with others, connect with others, help others. So supporting others and allowing others to support you is a way to keep it going and master whatever it is that you're trying to master.
Seems like part of the curse of childhood trauma is being, I don't know, grouchy, sensitive, moody, behaving in ways that can mess up friendships and that support, or make it really hard to ask for help. Yes. So it seems like coming at it, I mean, like, I know for me, I had to make learning to have better connections with people my highest priority, like more important than making a living, more important than exercising even. That I couldn't really do the other thing. I couldn't do the rest of life if I couldn't have connections with people. And it's just had to be the highest priority.
And it's life-saving. And also it has been shown again that we have better lives in general, not only people who have had trauma, but anyone, by connecting with others. That's really a priority for human beings, because we go back to the basics. It's about love, and love is connection. Love is caring, love is giving, receiving, having that interaction. We don't live in vacuum. We live in the context of our relationships. So that is key. I think you're putting your energy and your attention where it has to be.
So really, it's like we need to learn to love. We need to learn to love and be loved.
Absolutely.
How do we go to school for that? How can we become better at that?
That brings such another important issue. We get geometry, and we get calculus, and we get science, and we get all these subjects in education, right? And I tell people, we should have a course on relationships and love, call it however you want it. People do need to learn about these things, because this is all studied. I mean, there's a lot to be learned, but we already know enough to try to connect and relate to each other in a better way, And again, I tell my patients this, I'm sorry you paid a psychiatrist and to talk about this, but it really is about love and connection and understanding and feeling that you matter, and that somebody cares for, whatever you're going through. It's not that changes the story in terms of, okay, the cancer might still be there, the unemployment situation may still be there, but to know that somebody cares makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, we've got our work cut out for us. I wanted to thank you, Susana de Leon, and send my love to you and to all the people in Panama. And thank you for spending your career figuring this out for us and sharing it with us today.
Thank you very much, Anna, for inviting me. And thank you so much for the work you do.
Thank you. All right. Well, until the next time.
See you the next time.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.